Okay, YouTube, let's talk about Orlando. And so, before I get into this, obviously the 49 victims, their families, are in all of our thoughts and prayers, as are the other 53 victims who are injured in the hospital. And there are a lot of organizations out there that are trying to assist. And so if you're looking to donate, look at Equality Florida. They have set up a fund that's already generated $1.7 million. Feel free to contribute to that. I'll put the link below. Or if you want to give blood, and you can. I'll also put some links to the Red Cross as well. Now let's talk about Orlando. And this is obviously an act of terrorism and an act of hate, because the victims were LGBT. That's the target he chose. And while the news is reporting that, he may have visited Walt Disney World or other targets, he ultimately chose this one. And I think the fact that LGBT people were there can't be covered up, can't be ignored. And what we've seen, particularly from conservative lawmakers, is sort of a co-opting of the tragedy and an ignoring of who the victims were. And so very few GOP politicians mentioned LGBT. They said, let's keep the victims and their families in our thoughts and prayers. These are the same victims and families that these politicians have said live sinful lifestyles, that shouldn't be allowed to marry, who are trying to overrun traditional American values. But now today and last night, they say, we're all Americans, and even if we don't agree with LGBT people, we have to, protect America and defend ourselves from these other people. But I'm not going to let conservatives off the hook. I'm not going to blame them for what happened. They didn't pull the trigger. The shooter did. But inciting this kind of hateful rhetoric, perpetuating this kind of hateful rhetoric, people like Ted Cruz get up on stage with people who say gays should be killed, and now he wants to act like he wants to protect gay lifestyles from ISIS or whoever. No, that's fucking bullshit. You don't get to do that, Ted Cruz. You need to have a fucking seat and stay in your lane, because you're not helping. You didn't care about LGBT people until you could use it as political capital. The same goes for Donald Trump and for other conservative lawmakers, very few, who have come out in explicit support of the LGBT community, let alone acknowledged the hurt that the LGBT community is feeling right now. And so, last week I talked about how the media has been creating this false debate, or perpetuating this false debate around transgender people. The bathrooms are our identities, our rights. And now I'm done with it for the entire LGBT community. I'm not going to put up any more with dissent. I'm not going to put up any more with people who want to have an opinion about LGBT lives or transgender lives. Last week I was getting trolled by some trans exclusionary rad femmes and other anti-trans people, and I just started deleting their comments and blocking them, because I don't give a shit what those people have to say anymore. I don't care what they think. Their opinions are irrelevant, and while TERFs aren't listened to by that many people, conservative lawmakers are. Religious fundamentalists, religious extremists are. Even people who are more mainstream who just say, well, I don't agree with that. It's time to change your views. It's time to understand that even if you don't like LGBT people, even if the idea of trans women make you uncomfortable, we are women, we are people, We deserve equal rights and equal protection and toleration. You don't have to accept us. You don't have to embrace us. You don't have to love us. But you have to tolerate us. You have to protect us. You have to look at us like you look at yourselves. Had this not been an LGBT club, had this been another venue, like a church, people would be calling this out as a war on religion. But they're not doing that here because to call it out as a war on LGBT would force them to examine their own views, their own rhetoric, their own language, and change it. And that's what they're unwilling to do. That's why they're going to focus on the victim's alleged, allegiance to ISIS. They're going to focus on his ethnic background, but hate, divisiveness, violence, that crosses all people, all communities. Regardless of your religious background, your ethnic background, anything like that. People who hate are going to take it out on other people. Hurt people. That's what we saw. It has nothing to do with their other background and beliefs. It has to do with the fact that somebody decided that two men kissing was so egregious and offensive to him, he went and bought a gun, 2 guns, and killed and shot 100 innocent people. And he did this because he thought it was okay. He did this because he's been hearing this kind of rhetoric all over the place. Not just from, radical jihadist terrorists or whatever you want to say. He heard it here in the American media from American Christians and other people who think it's okay to disparage LGBT people. And it's not. It has to stop. Or Orlando won't be the end of this.